This is Advanced Notice with your host, Parks, and why not?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Advanced Notice. Kindly, you can look to my side. You'll see I have a different co-host today. Tony is off on his own adventures, so we, of course, have the amazing Big and Tall Matt. Matt, how are you doing?
Honestly, I'm excited to finally be on the show, and I'm happy to be here. You know, sucks Tony's not here, but got quite a lineup and plenty of things to go ahead and talk about here on the podcast. For tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot that happens in 2 weeks, and I'm so glad that we have that kind of timing in between things because you miss a lot of the things coming through. A big amount of NA transfers coming in and out because, of course, that roster lock is kind of coming in. Rosters needed to be set for the new season of Advanced, which is what's been going on. Season 42 is just kind of starting to kick off. We got a few matches here or there, lots of matches in advance. I know we've been casting them, but yeah, just lots all across the board in NA.
Yeah, honestly, especially, one thing, we're obviously going to talk about here later is the transfers in advance and in Challenger League, the move ups as well. Because if I do recall, the last time this show was recorded, it was just before the whole fiasco of, teams moving all around, essentially ESL shuffle for challengers. So ESL, excuse me, not ECL. But I don't know. There's going to be plenty to talk about. There's plenty of things happening as well, especially in terms of just like players that are still kind of the free agents and just in general of just like who's going to topple, both conferences here for challengers.
Yeah, there's a lot of move ups that came in. I mean, all of the relegation teams, all of the teams that were fighting in relegation ended up getting moved up, including Victorum, who didn't even make it. And that's a whole thing on its own, just because like you didn't expect that to happen, but it's a lot of teams not sticking around, having roster issues such as B-Hop, where they didn't have enough people. And I think they're actually a really good spot to start at here because we've had some transfers in for them. Eris, who we announced was going into Detonate, he was a part of that squad. He's transferred over to B-Hop. Swan and Brett are also joining him for the season. So they're all taking a bit of a demotion down into Advanced, but they're I guess the plan is an immediate rocket right back into ECL.
Yeah, and that Judge, I don't know how much I can say because let's just get to this. But per my sources over there at B-Hop, they plan on winning Advance. I see that happening. Right now, them and Limitless, and actually the old Vexo Purple squad now under Rain had a very, very good showing up against Take Flight, who was another playoff contention roster, winning on Dust 2 16-3. I do not know why they would ever take that old roster when now Rain in them onto Dust 2, because I think it's by far the best map. But regardless of the fact, the move ups, I'll go ahead and stay on topic about that for now. And the transfers as well. Like you said, we went ahead and saw, the shuffle between, B-Hop moving down, Detonate moving up. Oops, sorry, Mike. Swan and Brett joined the fight for B-Hop. And I think that's going to be a nice Detonate 2.0 roster with Rascal and them that when I first joined on Detonate, when I joined them about a year ago, that squad's going to be insane. I don't want to say they're 100% going to go ahead and win, Advance, because I think this is going to be another season where anything could happen, right? I think Limitless has a great opportunity to go ahead and topple them, but back to the transfer, getting Aries onto Detonate or off of Detonate, unfortunately, is a bit, I don't know. I think they're replacing him with Masami Duck, who was dropped by Brazen. To my knowledge, I don't know how 100% confirmed that is right now. Just kind of going off of Cash Cups and what I saw before I left Detonate. I think Masami Duck may be the one to 100% replace him. Not sure as of right now. But it's that whole roster at Detonate, I think it's going to have a swell time, especially if they can go ahead and get some more time as a 5-stack. Because at the beginning of last season, they went ahead and they made 2 roster changes between coach and one of the players. And I don't know, it's going to be interesting this season on top of, not just the roster changes and move ups, because I think we're fighting for 3rd and 4th place right now in each conference. I think it's kind of like guaranteed that it's going to be Gaming Gladiators. And I could probably throw, I really don't know, probably ATK, the top 2 in their conference. And then over on the Eastern Conference, it's going to be MIBR and most likely EG kind of just there at the top, honestly.
Yeah, it's one of those things of like you kind of have to trust the bigger orgs and the recent track record from all of them. And I mean, Masami Duck, I think the reason he got dropped from Brazen was just they didn't find his IGL style stuck with the team. So maybe something like that comes through and in the later stages. Another move that we kind of got to witness over the last few weeks. One Tap lost Saturn. I believe he took a step back. They ended up picking up Chu, which a great pickup as well. I mean, they're now into ECL as well, so it's their survival season. They need to make sure that they can continue forward, and they should be good on all that. So that's really good to see from them, that they're at least able to find their placement. But it's really weird because Saturn's been with One Tap for quite a long time, and I don't know where he's going next.
It's funny because as soon as Stamina was released slash drop and I'm gonna say his name wrong, Fights, I think the other Strife player, I believe he went back to where he came from in EU. I'm like, it's probably going to be Saturn or Darty Montana, as I've been told recently. It's not Dirty, it's Darty apparently. I'm like, one of those two are coming back 100%. I've heard some issues with Saturn. I've also heard some issues with Darty. I'm very happy to see one of the two actually make it back over there. I think Darty's going to be a great fit. He has a bunch of chemistry with that squad already. I just hope, the time, the prac time, scrim time, and all that stuff is going to go ahead and be there for him. Because I believe that was one of the problems I heard that they had. On top of a few other things, but it's Counter-Strike, it's esports, everyone's going to be at each other's necks one way or another. So Saturn, I'm not too sure what he's going to be doing. I didn't see anything on Twitter or saying like, hey, I'm going to take a break, or hey, I got dropped or whatever, or I'm going to another team. I believe he's still on that roster as well for One Tap, so he's not officially gone yet / on a new roster. Obviously anything can change in the matter of minutes. I honestly should have my Twitter open the entire time. That's all I do is like DM people and I'm like, yo, what's going on? But in terms of One Tap, Chewy, he's a good player, but I don't know. There's something about Saturn that I've always kind of like, this guy's just freaking solid. But we're gonna see.
I've never really seen any complaints from Saturn playing. I mean, there was that one time where he got put on a roster. That roster died, and he was like the big reason that they ended up sticking around for as long as they did, was because he was just trying to keep them together. So a very very good character, I guess you can say, from him, and I hope to see something from him in the future. I maybe if it's just him taking a step back for a season, maybe if he's going to collegiate stuff, I don't know, but I'm interested to see where it kind of comes from. Speaking of Brazen, we talked about Masami Duck leaving. They also lost Darty Montana.
Yeah.
He's gone. I haven't seen any replacements yet, although that might just be me missing them.
I don't think they have 100% replacement yet. New also hasn't really confirmed that with me either.
Your sources.
So yeah, my one source on Brazen is going to be New, because I personally don't know any of the players. I've never talked to them. I've never had any interaction with them. But I do not think they have a 100% 5-stack yet, and that their first game is the 30th. So they have a bit of time. They got another 14, 13-ish days to the first game of the season. They have plenty of time to go and try out on Cash Cups and other leagues and stuff like that, or in other tournaments and whatnot, to see, how they're going to go ahead and fit. So Brazen, it's a bit up in the air right now for me to see where they're going to go ahead and land on top. Are they going to get relegated? Are they going to be able to they take that third or fourth spot? There's a lot of work to be done. And going into an ECL season, when you lose one or two pieces of your roster, that's a lot. That's almost half your team, and now you got to rebuild that chemistry. You got to go over all your strats and stuff like that. It can be risky doing that, but I mean, it's for the better of the team. I'm not too sure the whole reason why they dropped Masami Duck. I thought him getting moved up as fast as he did was I love him because I believe he was part of that Rectify squad. I was very surprised when he got poached out of nowhere after they win main. I was like, holy crap, he's going to Challenger. What the hell? It's like out of nowhere. I think he deserves a spot, but like I said, I don't want to say it was premature either. I think he deserves to have that spot. But I think starting to bite him in the butt a little bit. He hopefully found a new home with Detonate, so he'll be staying there for the time being. But I don't know. I think Duck has solidified his position that I'm a challenger level player, even though he just like moved up randomly,
I mean, and that's one of those great things when you look at some of the players that are taking an aggressive approach, looking at main, looking at the lower level teams in advance, looking at those mid-table teams in advance, ones that I think if you're going for a playoff push, a lot of those teams, a lot of them have ECL players in them. So there's already kind of a trust that they're going to stick together to make playoffs, to make relegation, or just to straight up qualify. And I mean, this is for all the removals that they're getting. and losing those players, I think this is a fine season for that to happen because of all the teams that have died and were replaced with
Yeah.
these ECL relegation teams. They didn't make it the first time around, so I'm not saying they're weak, but it's almost as if the season is a little bit more forgiving in terms of moves being
Yeah.
made. It's a good reset season to make sure you're good to go. And I mean, a lot of teams are having some replacements. They're doing some reconfiguring, and maybe all these teams come out stronger. Maybe again they come in next season, they have to go. We need to retool again, but we have a better idea of where we're going to go with it. It's one of those things.
Mm.
Speaking of teams losing a lot, Strife, they lose both Fidgets and
Yeah.
Stamina, and Stamina went to Limitless in Advance. So that's an interesting thing there. They have, so far as we can say, as far as we can see, sorry, have brought back in Jitter, and they brought in Darty Montana
Yep.
to replace the two. But that's a big contributor in Stamina gone. And I mean, that's your EU import now leaving after
Yeah.
less than a season being there.
Yeah, Fights just was not utilized. It seems like his time there on the roster, you can't do anything in that short amount of time. I believe it was what, less than 3 months. It was I
Yeah.
don't even
It
think
was
they got.
not a very long time.
Yeah,
It
it
wasn't even the
wasn't a long
summer.
time. Exactly. So, it's honestly, I hate saying it, but it kind of a wasted investment from a management standpoint. You didn't get. I hope you got your money's worth, so one way or another. I'm sure he played well. I'm sure he was a great person and stuff like that. But that little time you invest all that money to get the guy over here, it obviously just it was a failed import. That's what it was. Nothing against him though. That's just like the realistic side of things is that it just didn't go well. I hope that all the players learned something from it though. I mean, bringing that import on in, he can teach him the ways that he learned over there in EU and whatnot. But it just being realistic about it, it just as an org standpoint, it was a failed experiment, I guess. But sounds a little harsh, but I'm just being realistic about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful at this level and at how it again in its infancy, the tier 2 NA scene is like
Mm,
bringing him in was huge. That's an eye
yeah,
grabber. That's a we're trying to make something of this, and then for just kind of to fail after a little bit of time.
yeah,
Part of that's kind of the roster rapidly shifting. Like you've all of a sudden lost your star IGL. You've lost that cohesion that comes with that, and now you're retooling, you're rebuilding, and that's one of the things that Stamina said. Like that was the reason he left was because every single time they'd get somewhere, they'd have to do a roster swap.
yeah,
He'd have to start from scratch or near scratch again with bring this person into play, figuring out what works best with them, and then work the system around that. It gets tiring, and so I can understand why he left. And it's unfortunate that you bring in such an experienced player because he's played all over the place. I mean,
yeah,
he is an Estonian, not only an Estonian, but he's a world journeyman in terms of CS. He's been everywhere. Like I believe at one point he even played for Tyloo. Like that's a rare occurrence to happen. Only a few players can say that they played Asian CS and have had a career afterwards. It's sometimes
yeah,
they tend to go in there and then they just play out their last few months and then they quietly go and do either coaching or something else. But he's still going around. I believe now he's back playing on an Estonian team. So great
yes,
for him. It's just it's crazy what happens when you're not even here for 3 months and all of a sudden you're in and you're out. That just
yep.
shows how volatile it is right now.
Yeah, and I'm gonna backtrack a little bit as well. I don't want to say it was a complete fail. They had a very good season run, but in terms of playoffs, they went 0-2. I do believe they went undefeated for the season. They were 7-0 in the conference. So like I said, for the regular season, really well. I do believe I think Slight got sick slash COVID. I remember somebody saying they were sick towards the end of the season. I believe it was on Strife. I could be completely wrong. But then they go 0-2 in playoffs. They lose the game in Gladiators and then lose the B Hop both 2-1
Yeah.
and stuff like that. That you can't help. That was unfortunate. I think if everyone was full and healthy, I think they probably could have a really deep run. But in terms of the import, the amount of time that was given, I kind of wanted to give it a very low rating, but
Yeah.
we'll move on from that because I think that's really it. I mean, going back now, keeping it in Challenger, I guess we can talk about EG a little bit, bringing Hex on.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
that's
don't know.
that's an interesting one. Listen, we looked at the project, the 15 players that were brought on, and we went, okay, show us what you can do, what's going to happen with this. We expect
Yeah,
there to be rotation, we expect there to be some kind of finicky, some workarounds, because that's the whole point of signing these two rosters. Because all of a sudden, you're taking two slots in Party Astronauts and Carpe Diem, combining them because you can only have one team sponsored per league from each thing. So you
yeah,
can't have two EGs playing in ECL. It just doesn't work. So you're combining those two teams. You're going to make that a little bit more interesting. But the other thing that it was for was to bring in these young talents, give them experience, push them into getting in closer into that tier 1 CS, show the world what they can do. Because when you're stuck in NA, you tend to not get any eyeballs on you unless you're able to go to the Blasts, unless you're able to go to ESL Challenger League. Like there's these few events that were really able to put the teams into the forefront. So instead, EG is doing it with just individual players. And I mean, it's unfortunate that that some players had to be dropped as a result of that. I mean, Stewie's gone to do content creation, so now there's an open spot there. Automatic also taking a step back for now. And as a result, Rush, who was originally taken out of the lineup because they brought in Nealon as their IGL to replace Stewie, Rush was to take a step down. That gave spot for Hex to come up because they wanted, that new blood. And Hex is one of those players that I think has been kind of waiting for this. Most of the Carpe Diem guys have been. They were always, them and Party Astronauts, this is why they were signed probably, is because they were always kind of just on the cusp, but because there was never enough slots in international tournaments, they never were able to get there, or they were facing up against Brazilian teams that were already going to these national events, such as Furia, such as Team One, such as Pain Gaming. These teams that were always fighting for spots, they get them over the NA teams. And now all of a sudden, those groups that were so close to getting there, they're just not there anymore. So I like seeing Hexed up there. It was unfortunate that Rush got pushed down for that. I'm glad he's back up, because really in the last few months, like, Rush is not the player he was on Cloud9. That's not really a debate. He's not there anymore. But he's still he's still pretty consistent in terms of his fragging ability, in terms of what leadership and kind of rock he can still bring. So I like him being there. It's just unfortunate that Automatic had to take a step back for that to happen.
And I mean, in terms of the Challenger League roster, I mean, I like the idea, and it's still kind of weird to some people, but having the ability to have 15 people on your roster and being able to just rotate them all around to see what, I mean, I want our scrims are. Scrims are probably amazing. Everything's in house. It's probably a lot of fun. So I don't know, when that first happened, I'm like, yeah, you get rid of 2 top teams in like Challenger. I believe it was, you said Carpe Diem, and I think it was PA, right?
Yeah, Carpe Diem and PA.
Yeah, see, I remember, because that's when I about started paying attention more to Challengers when all this happened, because I was always the advanced guy.
Yeah.
Not so much Challengers, so excuse me if some of my history is a little off. Advance is more my thing, because LCA and stuff. But besides the point, I'm forced to, but I love it anyways, regardless of the fact. I don't know, just I think they're going to be good either way in the Challenger scene. In terms of the pro level, I still can't tell you.
Yeah,
that's more of your avenue.
I wonder how much retooling they look at in terms of roster stuff, because PA as a roster is still really good. They were always really good. But do you look at that and say, listen, we also need to give some of the other guys time? The good part is, because everybody's on the same roster, you don't have to worry about swapping and switching. You have all these subs already kind of sitting there waiting to go. You've filled it out. So I guess you look at that and you go, maybe Pone's sick tonight, so we're going to bring in Wiz, or we're gonna bring in Wiz, or maybe Ben's not having a great night, so we're gonna bring in Walco, or maybe it's like, we're just gonna flip it, we're gonna bring in Stan, we're gonna bring in the whole CD lineup with Stan in there, and we're gonna fill whoever was missing because X player took a break or Y player is not feeling well. You just kind of you mix and match, and you just essentially, you don't want to turn it into a pug team, but you also want to be able to have teams that you also want them both to get reps. They almost need to both evenly get matches in, or else you're starting to waste some of the potential that comes with this.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of Premier, I think honestly, I got nothing else for you there. But I mean, want to bring it into Advance. Unless you got something there. I'll say Advance, we can start talking.
I think we can bring it back to Advance. I mean, the podcast is named Advance Notice. We're a bit behind on ECL, but we gotta get back to our roots here.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, I mean, the biggest upset so far this season, there's 2 major points. The Take Flight, Electrify Steel, that loss up against Exo Purple, now in Rain. That was something else. But did you pay attention, or did you watch that Limitless game at all? Game 1?
No. I didn't.
They all got snow breaks without Davey, right? Davey's a good player, but he does not matter if he was there. It was like 16-4. It was at one point where it was Birdie, me and Birdie won the cast. I'm casting them again tonight for the second game of the season. But they were so scared at one point. Both players are coming down con on overpass T side on the side of all gas no breaks. He heard the noise and he fully 180'd and dinked his teammate. He's like, oh, it's a teammate. The nerves were there. This Limitless squad, I've heard mixed reviews from players. I do not care what they say at this point. I think last night was a showing. I do not care if there's too many chefs in the kitchen. I do not care if you think their egos are going to go ahead and collide. The firepower is there. The op of Maxwell is still in great effect. That hasn't gone anywhere. And just the brains on this roster and the things they're going to be able to come up with, they're going to be a scary roster. Now, going back to it, do I think B-Hop can beat them? I think they're the only people that can beat them right now.
Yeah.
I know it's only one game on in, man, but these names on, Maxwell, Scar, JBA, I believe Coach Coastal, and then Stamina and Cameron, man. These guys are freaking scary. I think they brought in Mello for a sub as well. So if something were to happen, they have a great guy to back on, right?
Yeah.
I just, it's going to be tough for anybody but B-Hop to beat these guys. Especially like when a lot of the better teams that were in advanced last season got moved up to Premier, just for every freaking reason possible.
there's a vacuum, and I think Limitless and B-Hop are gonna see a lot of good come from it, because it's not only that it's not just that the playoffs will be a little easier to get to if you have a lot of ECL players on your team, but it's also that they're getting experience together in advance that they can then bring together as long as they stay as a 5 once they get back up. That provides them a lot of benefit, because now you've had that season to work together where you weren't facing, let's say, as stronger or strong competition at all. You're facing, I don't want to say what's beneath them, but they're one of those bounce teams. There's these teams in football, because football has relegation, where they kind of bounce between the top league and the league below. And the reason they do that is because they're better than the teams in the league below, but they're not good enough to reliably stay up. So you have a few of those bounce teams in ECL and Advanced, and that happens. But it just means that you got it kind of a season to retool and reconfigure in advance, get better, get together, figure it all out, and then you got to go up, and then you got to try again to stay up. And a lot of times you have players poached and stuff. I think with Limitless and B-Hop, you look and you say, these guys, their plan is to stick together. They have the orgs backing them. The orgs want to be up in ECL. So that's the goal. And they get the best shot this season with all the move ups that happen. I mean, you don't have Victorum in your playoff bracket anymore to destroy it.
Yeah, it's sad face. I'm rooting for those guys now. Hey, that's all I gotta say. I kind of have
supporting
to.
them. So
yeah, I know. I'm just trying to find them a home right now. I'm just helping them there. So if any orgs watching, hit my DMs if you want to ECL roster. I love the Victorium guys. Shout out to Atomic for carrying Wingman the other night. But besides the point, I think there are a few, top contenders this season. Old Counter Nature, I think they're under Electics or something like that now. Electic. FPL and Ellison, they're reasonable. Rain is X-Vexo Purple, so we're going to be seeing them again. Esoteric is... I don't know. They have a good win on Redux and pre-gaming, but they lose to Mad Kings. I still don't know how I feel about them. I think the biggest sleeper this season, and I think this goes beyond the doubt, is Kari. Kari Esports is the biggest sleeper team this season. They are. After what we saw in the RMR, I don't want to call it dude, that RMR, I got to cast the last game against Brazen. And bro, they didn't even look bad against Brazen. They would there was at one point, it was like 7-1 in favor of Brazen. Out of nowhere, they start stringing these rounds together. And I believe it ended up being like a 16-12 or something like that. But no, I'm not disrespecting them at all. Back when they were on Carbon X, I thought they were a very mediocre team. The improvement I've seen from those guys in maybe the year, from Carbon X to X Carbon X to whatever the hell they were called last season to now Kari, it's night and day. So that is my sleeper team. I think I don't even want to say think. I know I'll be seeing them in playoffs, but to give you it's just really tough to call it now. The new Snakes Den roster is I'm still trying to think, how do I feel about that? Eros is still, that is the, what were they called? Chewy just got poached from them. They wanted Premier. I forgot what they were called, the Jungle or something like that, but they had a Varum, I think, or something like that was their roster name. Why Not was here. He'd be able to tell me instantly. But because they were a Premier level roster, they made, they made the Cinderella run in advance or whatever. But They're over under Eros now. They're a 1-0 start. They had a great win up against the Whiffies, which I mean isn't really anybody too notable on that one. I think they're an IM move up. Advance is going to be tricky this season.
Yeah.
In terms of, I think there's a clear top two, Limitless and B-Hop. That's clear. That is clear. The rest of the playoff spots, good luck.
Up. Yeah,
good luck.
And I mean, we talk about you mentioned Kari being your sleeper team. I think that RMR is going to put everyone on notice to them.
Yep.
And I think we still have 2 RMRs to go. And I mean, Game and Complexity have qualified through the first one, so you don't have to worry about those strong teams anymore being there. You have to worry about EG eventually when they come back. You have to worry about potentially other teams that now have the chance to play in them coming in. But at the same time, it's a weekend RMR. There's always gonna be something, but I think Kari have essentially put everybody on notice that yes, we're a good team. We're probably gonna make playoffs. We're gonna try and go for a deep run, and that's good enough for them. Speaking of deep runs here, we're just gonna quickly get through this. EGL Premier is still going. I believe they're in the last few matches here, the semifinals and the grand finals. I know Stamina had great things to say about it, and he actually made sure to, he got it out on Twitter, like, these guys should be on HLTV. They're doing great work. It's a great thing to have over the player break for teams that don't really need a player break, because they're all just kind of, tier 3 advanced ECL teams. They're not going to need a player break. They're set rosters. They're playing through it all. They just want to get that exposure. And it's honestly, it's been really good.
Yeah, player break makes me roll my eyes every time. I understand needing, I like people that use the player break to say, hey, I had something come up. That's great.
Yeah.
But to me, I don't know. Player fatigue back when I used to play just wasn't really a thing. But then I'm a Call of Duty kid, so what do I know? But if they use it, great. I'm sure, when you're playing 24/7, it's completely different than me making money off of wagers. But that's besides the point. Let's bring it back to what's it called? EGL Premier. Mr. Crown is cool. Playoffs were even with Brazen, and I want to give a shout out to the community with this. I worked with Crown. I said, you had to make it up to the players. Brazen dropped Masami and they lost Darty, right? And I said, you have to make the call. You got to go ahead. You have to tell them, saying, hey, if you guys don't all come to an agreement, we can't do this. They were willing, all the playoff teams were willing to give Brazen 2 subs. Every person agreed without it, nothing. So shout out to all 16 teams that made in playoffs. That's what keeps, the competitive side of things, very, the respectable side of whatever you want to go to call it. Integrity is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, integrity.
There. But I mean, Brazen, they had to beat Unjustified to new stack. They're still getting used to things. They won that 2-1. Then they had to beat Motivate, who was a complete sleeper roster that completely tore up Villainous Union. That's Tatum and Co. Sorry, Cookie Man. And then ESG and Brazen are now going to be going at it. ESG beat Vario Pro, who I think is another great roster. I've casted them 3 times already this season. I think they're going to be fine in advance. Touchpoint with Gur and what's his face, Drew the Shrew coming on in. That's going to be another great roster to watch out for. I don't think they're going to need a season to get used to things. I think they're going to be great right off the gate. But they had to beat them as well. Going to Timmerman, they had to go ahead and play fragging for Mikey, I think, or Rack, I think. Fragging for Rack. Yeah, something like that. And then they had to play Rusty's. Rusty's was a bit of a sleeper game, too. They beat, they looked really good against pre-gaming. But I think that's just a pug stack. And Infinity, they had to beat Valence, who I'm still kind of iffy on, and Vexo. And that's the old, I think that's the Vexo Spanish. No, I don't think it was Vexo Spanish team. Somebody has a Spanish team. I forgot who it was. But Vexo's other roster from last season, I think they're in Maine. So top 4, we got Brazen, ESG going on at it. I think that's the one me and Benny are going to be covering on Sunday. And Timberman and Infinity are going to be casted tomorrow, the 18th. I'm not too sure when this one's going to get published. But
probably tomorrow.
So hopefully, happy birthday to me. Yay. Woo. Anyways, we'll get this one published. I believe in producer Jay. But Danny and Vincent will be on that one. Shout out to Danny. He's been a great addition to LCA. Sorry, I'm not. Sidetrack advance notice. Danny, I don't know if you're going to watch this, man, but he is a cool freaking guy. He is. Dude. I'm surprised. He's like, Ping's like, you don't know who Danny is? I'm like, he's always on the EGL stuff. I'm like, bro, I've never heard of him. He has like 10 followers on Twitter. Yeah, no, he's a great person. He does a great job casting. Just, I can't wait to watch this man grow. But back to EGL. I think I'm going to have Timmerman versus ESG. I think Timmerman's going to win it all. With the addition of Droid, that roster, I think just got, Calyx, I love you. But Droid's amazing. I will never let people sleep on Droid, despite his allegations and stuff like that. Whatever. But that was like a really sorry eye roll. That's not what I meant. But Droid as a player, Droid as a player is really, really great, and he's proved that multiple times. I think Timberman's going to be fun to watch in Premier, and I think they're going to go ahead and take this all. I'm not too sure if it's a best of 5 final, but if it's against ESG, they probably will go ahead and go the distance. I think it'll be going all 5 maps, 100%.
Yeah. So, and the best part about all this is those matches are all on HLTV, which means there's potential for higher viewership. There's probably going to be a lot of bettors in there, but when is there not?
Russian match fixers.
Hey, a viewer is a viewer. We talk about it. We talk about money. Money is green. That's kind of thing.
Thanks,
a viewer
Vincent.
is a viewer. Yeah, thanks, Vincent. But a viewer is a viewer, and that helps out. That was one of the things that Stamina pointed out. Is like, listen, EGL might be a new tournament in like this. What is it? Second season, third season?
This is season 3. This is the third league, and I believe he's had 2 tournaments on top of a wingman tournament. That was actually a lot of fun. Me and Ping got to cast that one. But yeah.
So there's plenty there, and that definitely shows that it's a consistent thing. It's going to keep happening. So it might as well get onto HLTV. You can see more NA, because at the end of the day, that's one of the things that we're missing is things that get shown on NA on a consistent basis that people can tune into and watch, because HLTV essentially is the mecca for where you go to watch CS be played, where you get to see score lines and stuff.
And honestly, if we'll keep it on the topic of save NACS, NA's biggest rival, or the biggest what's the word I'm looking for? Biggest enemy, it's itself. Too many people, too hard on themselves, on other people, and they just got to learn how to have that competitive integrity and just be a normal human being about things and not being weird in DMs and calling people certain things. But I mean, besides the point, when I think we're going to mention his name for the 30th time this show, Stamina brought that community together for a few minutes on Twitter, and within the hour, I believe it was Ems is like, yeah, he's on HLTV now. Semifinals are going to be covered. And finals, and it's that's like literal proof that little things like a simple freaking tweet from a great man like Stamina can change the community. And if everyone's just a little bit more positive and a little bit more supporting, I think NA can go a lot more way. There's also been threads on Twitter the last few days of how are we going to save NACS.
Oh, it's always going to be a thing. It's never going to stop because of how everybody knows that it needs to be fixed, but there's still so many things on the horizon.
I think people, I'll put my one statement. There needs to be more content-oriented stuff. There needs to be more organizers, or I dare say we only really need EGL as the organizer, maybe one-off tournaments here and there for online leagues and stuff like that. It's going to be tough to get LAN support just because, money is trouble for everybody right now.
Oh, yeah.
And then in terms of just being nice to one each other, people need to set up these kind of boot camps virtually. Don't be afraid to do that. It's a very normal thing online to do, especially now that esports has had these virtual boot camps where it's like, all right, guys, we're going to send a Discord or a TeamSpeak with 8 teams, and it's going to be 50 people in there. Let's go. Coaches work together, players work together. This is what they do. Scramble the teams. How would you affect this? Do a bunch of what ifs. There's a bunch of different ways to save NACS, but we'll move on from that topic because that wasn't in the itinerary.
Yeah, been adding stuff to the itinerary as we go. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're hitting that time now. We speak about positive, getting some change in here. We're gonna move over to a bit of a new section that I like to. I'm gonna try and keep talking about. It's the FE scene. We're actually gonna bring in one of our best friends and other casters in here, Benikage. He's getting in here. Who? The old man? We're bringing the old man?
Is his alarm set? Did we make sure?
He goes by many names. Benikage, though, he's going to come in here. We're going to talk a lot about the FE scene because these 2 weeks have been huge, not just for the advanced, the ECL kind of section, but there's been a lot happening behind the scenes in the Impact League area, and it's perfect to bring him in ASAP. Okay, welcome Benikage on to the podcast here. Advanced Notice. We had to bring on this new section. It's called Brace for Impact, and I think it's a good name. Benny, lay out some stuff for us here. What are we looking for in terms of the Impact FE scene?
I'm looking forward to the name, actually. It's pretty good. I like it. But for the Impact scene, of course, we've got the qualifiers coming up for Season 2, actually right around the corner. And actually, the news that broke today at the time of recording this was the invites for Season 2. Yes. We got the invites for who was going to be in the regional online leagues for Season 2. Europe, Nigma Galaxy, Big Akiba, Lives, and Navi Javelins, of course, North America CLG Red, Police and Box, Evil Geniuses, which we'll talk about later, I know, Valkyries, and then South America only getting 3 invites, Furia B4 and MIBR. So that's what we're looking at for the online seasons across the 3 leagues that we are going to have. So
yeah, and I mean we gotta kind of key in more on to the NA side here. So we've got CLG Red, we've got Police and Box, we've got EG, and we've got Valkyries. I know there's a few interesting names kind of coming through on those teams. I mean, the biggest news I guess we have to start with is CLG Red having a huge roster switch up. Sorry, after 7 years, Diane and Emmy are leaving the team, and Julie is stepping back. Who are they replaced by?
So they brought in Bibian, they brought in Calde, and they brought in Mads as well. So Mads is a really good rifler. She was on the police and help side, I believe, that went to Dallas. And of course, Calde, who's been playing for NSC GG over in Europe. That's an unsigned team, and a little bit of a cursed one, unfortunately, because they made 5 Cash Cup finals and they lost every single one of them. Wow. Now, they eventually did get one over the line when they picked up Astra, who was dropped right after she got dropped by Godsent, which happened after the Valencia tournament. So after the Valencia tournament, Astra came into the side. Then they picked then they went and played in the Cash Cup with her, won that Cash Cup. So NSC eventually did get over the line. But Calde's a pretty experienced AWPer, and it's good to see her in the side, and good to see also that she's going to be joining in North America pretty soon, because it's a lot harder, I feel like, to pry talent out of Europe than it is elsewhere in the world. But they did pry another piece of talent out of North America, and that's Bibian. And I think just the story of picking up Bibian alone is a fantastic story. I mean, just having to fought through everything that she did to get there, but also just the quality, I think, for Bibian is really going to shine through. I think this is a player that is probably going to light women's Counter-Strike on fire now that she's in a team like CLG Red, because she's been an incredible Counter-Strike player within the scene and outside of the women's kind of niche, if you will, within the Counter-Strike community, playing on mixed sides as well, having a ton of impact, and now she's got kind of the big opportunity for her to elevate CLG back to potentially #1 in the world.
And I mean, that's one of those things where she's from the oceanic scene, and you talk about what recently came through of Order is now shutting down operations. I believe Mindfreak, who had that FE team, is kind of, that roster is all kind of burst apart, and Bibian was one of the players on that team. So her having the chance to come over into NA, onto a newer looking CLG Red, a younger looking CLG Red, that's always a bonus. And I mean, if you're going to replace these long tenured players in Diane and Emmy, I think you've made the right picks, and Julie being gone as well means you needed to find some more NA talent, and that's kind of where Mads comes in. So it's really good to see from them. Speaking of new NA talents, though, we've got EG, who a few days ago announced their roster. Who is it?
So it's the old Sacrifice lineup, or I should say the old Sacrifice lineup. It is Sacrifice lineup. So, there's a lot of concern after Dallas, because Police and Help kind of split apart. They lost Mads, they lost Senna, right? Senna went over to Police and Box, where she is currently competing. And Mads, we didn't really hear from a lot in the scene. And here it turns out she's prepping for CLG Red. So what happened to the core lineup was going to be the question. Of course, you still had Lover Girl, who is now known as Garden. And you had Jessica CS, and you had Piggy Kiki as well. And the question is, what's going to happen to this team? Are they going to be weaker because they looked really strong in Season 1? They beat Police and, well, at that time it was the Little Box before they merged and became Police and Box, but still they beat the Little Box to get there. They kind of a little bit had their number. We had this fantastic rivalry with them where it was just close games, left, right, and center. If anyone wants to see how close, I would suggest they go back and watch that qualification game to get the Dallas. Map 1 of that series, the overpass, where it went double overtime, and it was just last second clutch after last second clutch. You could not separate these two sides, and that's what made it so fantastic. But here what happened is they picked up Milk, the former talent from Dignitas, you'll remember, who had went over the Valorant, came back because she just loved CS so much. And they picked up Empathy as well. And they have Coach Onter still rolling with them as well, back from when they were Police and Help. And so that's the new lineup. they've looked good. They haven't been able to beat the box in any of the Cash Cups, but I still think, I mean, we just saw them take CLG Red to an overtime on Ancient in the previous Cash Cup. So they're looking a lot stronger, and they're looking to potentially really make their second land at the end of the year in Sweden.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing is you get signed to an org like EG, they're going to expect. I don't want to say they expect it, but they're going the knowledge is you're a top team in the area. I mean, we talk about the eternal fight between that little box please send help box or please send box team going up against this EG/sacrifice thing. They're both still fighting for second, third. It's so confusing, the names.
Oh yeah,
But
the history just this year alone is going to have you
Please send
absolutely
box.
just tied up like a pretzel, man. It's nuts. But I think the important thing to note too is, and I really haven't touched on this anywhere else, is that I'd like to see what signing for the organization like Evil Geniuses, great organization, long history in Counter-Strike. Great to see them come into the women's game finally. I think the thing is it going to be a scenario like Navi Javelins, where if you remember, there was a few interviews, I believe in HLTV as well, where the Javelins were interviewed saying, "Oh, do you talk to the main team?" Because obviously the main team, it's simple, boom, boomage, all that stuff. They said, "Yeah, we do actually talk. Our coaches share strategies, and we kind of come up with new strategies for attacking bomb sites and things like that." I'm wondering if they're going to have the same exposure on the EG side, and even more so because now you've got 4 full rosters signed to that organization. So there's a lot of networking that, at least in terms of the potential that could be done to maybe help develop this side further along. And that's what I would look forward to. I think there's some really good minds in EG right now, especially with Munster and the likes there. And I think there's an opportunity for the box or not the box, beg your pardon. I'm all messed up too.
Yep.
Cut that out. Edit that out. No,
No.
but I think
it's staying in now.
It's staying in. It's staying in. No, but no, I think the point is there's an opportunity really for this now sacrifice lineup part of EG to draw on a lot of that and see how they fare.
So for me, then, I'm obviously seeing that for the season 2 invited teams, we see obviously the 4 Europe, 4 North American, and 3 from SA or South America. Excuse me, I should just say that. In terms of the qualifiers, because you two pay attention to the Impact scene way more than I do. I support whenever I can, kind of thing, and usually my weekends are full, so I'm not able to help Cash Cups as much as I used to. But in terms of NA, do you guys have an expected? It's 4 technically. It's 2 more qualifiers for the next season, correct?
Yep.
2 teams for teams will make it in each qualifier for NA. Who are the next 4 teams out of NA to go to make those qualifiers right now?
I think you gotta look at Hot Flash as the favorite. That would be mine. And I mentioned this on Twitter because Valkyries is a decent. Is it? They're an okay side. It's not bad. I look at that side and go, is this the team that is better than Hot Flash? I would say not particularly. I mean, I think there's potential there. Andrea's played okay. I think she's the big name in this side. Gally, Pippi, Slippy, kind of the other 2. And I'm like, okay, that side has potential, but I think if you're looking at that Hot Flash, I think there's one. Yeah, sorry. I think they're the favorites to qualify. The other 3,
you only get 2. I get 2, and you get 2.
Okay. So the only other one I would say, I'm actually going to go with Supremacy Gaming down in Peru. So this was one of the we had 2 Peruvian outlets join the North American leagues last time. Pretty decent outlet. After season 1, they kind of broke up. I can't remember the name of the second squad. One was Osadia. The other one I cannot remember off the top of my head. But the one that wasn't Osadia became Supremacy Gaming, and I think they picked up 1 or 2 from Osadia after Osadia kind of fell apart. So I think Supremacy Gaming actually might be the ones next that come into the league for season 2. I certainly wouldn't put it past them.
The Osadaya. When I used to cast Cash Cups, I used to call him Osadaya because I think it's Ace Combat. The one of the nations is called Osadaya. It's from something else.
I used to call them Osadia, and then I realized they were Peruvian, and I'm like, no, it should be
Osadia. Sounds cool though. I'm not gonna lie.
This is one of the things.
So
All
Hot
right.
Flash and Osadilla. I think that's
No,
what you said.
Hot Flash and Supremacy.
My bad,
maybe,
Supremacy.
The
All right, there you
the
go.
other Peruvian team.
Yes, okay.
Man, oh,
What
I
you got
left
for
two
us?
options, Park.
there's a
I
lot
left
of
two
options. No, there's a lot of
man.
options. I can think of two. I know for sure one is going for it. The other one, I don't know if they're actually doing the qualifiers or not because the players kind of coming through. For sure, my pick coming in is Echo. And Echo is one of those teams.
Very good pick.
It's so ridiculous to me. I talked to Folygag, the IGL of this team, so much. Their bracket seating in these cash cups always fucking screws them over.
Yeah.
Because it's always like they play one team, they get seated like 7th or 8th. So they play the one team and then they're immediately going up against like CLG Red or something. But they have been solid in terms of playing against those other teams that aren't the Sacrifice, that aren't the CLG Red, the ones that are just going to run over you because their level of play is so much better. I think they're going to make it. I don't know how the bracket's going to work out for them again because ESEA is going to ESEA, and it seems like their bracket luck has always been pretty bad.
Yeah, unfortunately. Just a note on that, by the way. There is a few players in that side that have quite a bit of experience playing together. CY has been in the scene for probably 3 or 4 years now. She's a pretty good player. She's been playing with Cirrus the entire time. They played the core of this lineup played all the way back at DreamHack Showdown Winter back in 2020.
That's been a minute,
known as Dangerous Game. So they've been, the core 3 here have been playing for a while. So I actually like that pick. That's a very good pick, Parks. Who's your other one?
It's a weird one. I don't know what. I haven't had much time to talk. I tend to try and talk to some of the teams and say, hey, like, let me know a bit about you so I can say things on stream or whatever. They haven't. I haven't really had a chance to reach out to any of them. They have a few players that like I know are really good. Some of them stream a bit. It's actually going to be Saints FE.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at that squad and I go, Jess Cranny is such an amazing player already, and they only have just like started playing together. It's one of those things like they just started doing cash cups, they just started doing stuff together. So I'm interested to see what happens. I know they had a player named Wedding who was having some issues, so they've replaced her with somebody new. I think that's where I go and I say I don't know who's kind of on that team or not. But I know they have a standard set of people, and if they are going to be in those qualifiers to make it through, they're my second pick in terms of who else I think is going to go in. And it's just one of those things of like I've seen them play the cash cups. Cash cups are such an important thing as a benchmark as well for this, because some of these teams, they might not play all of them. Like Supremacy haven't played the last few, so I don't know what's the status on Supremacy, but I know if they show up, if they've practiced enough, at least in the South American side or even in the Central American side, if they've played a few of the teams there and they've got some practice, they got some reps together, there's a good chance they can upset because they haven't shown themselves yet. Whereas someone like Saints, they're just popping onto the scene now as a team, as a 5. It's one of those things of, is there going to be enough time for prep? Are people worried about prep? And I don't know. I think they're my wild card of, if they're playing, they're going to have a good run and maybe even qualify.
I like that pick. I wanted to. Saints is. I agree. I think they're the next one in. It's Lisa, Bunny, Olia, and Paula Biceps who are on that side, by the way, as well. I don't know who the 5th is. Ever since they dropped Wedding, I don't know. But I think Bunny's a really good player. Also been playing. Kind of in on and off a little bit for the last few years. Was also at the DreamHack Winter, by the way. That was on, interestingly enough, a team called Violent Roses that went on to beat Dignitas on a best of 3, and that included on Nuke, which is arguably at the time one of Dignitas's best maps. So you can go back. That's a fantastic series, by the way, that was. So you got a few players there with a bit of experience as well. But I like your pick. I think Saints is the other one. I do agree. I personally kind of want to see Low Fidelity get in.
You and me both. You and me both want to see them get in. You know what? I'm gonna kind of be biased.
Leaving me out.
You want to interject? Say your support?
No. I mean, obviously, it's the only. It's the only team I know that. Wait, that is the TAT team, correct?
That is the TAT team.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah. Okay. I'm like, wait a minute. I might be completely stupid because I know what you said. Anyways, besides the point. Yeah, I'm mixing up the info you gave me last night a little bit.
Yeah, I know.
So it's. I like. Don't get me wrong. I've always supported Tat. I love her.
We love
It's
Tat.
just how it is. We always do. It's just I can't every time I feel like I watch them though they just lose, so I just stopped watching kind of thing. Joking aside, but I mean with this new roster, you guys more than I do. You guys know more than I do about the players. How much of a upgrade actually is that new low fidelity roster?
I think there's a lot of work. I think there's a lot of potential. I look at this team and go, this team really actually could be a decent, like kind of mid-tier team in North America, right? My comparison would be to like South America, how you have Furia, B4, and MIBR. Like you got Furia at the top, right?
Yeah.
Uncontested. You got B4 and MIBR that beat each other all the time. It's neck and neck. And then you've got this pool of like 4 teams in South America that just beat. There's just nobody can seem to best each other consistently, and that's like Endgame, Illusion, W7M, and Black Dragons, right? I feel like North America is laid out exactly the same. You got CLG at the top, nobody contesting it. Then you've got evil geniuses in the police end box, right? Constantly swapping wins back and forth. And then you got this middle pack here, right? Hot Flashes in there. Girls by Power might be in there as well. But I feel like Low Fidelity can really get to that level where they're just in that mid-table in North America, and they can constantly pull these wins over these teams within the mid-table in them, but then struggle to beat the top 3. I just don't think they're there yet. But I think if you look at the team on paper, you could definitely say, yeah, that's a team, but that's probably where they belong, and they're not quite there yet.
I think when you look at it, there's a lot of work that needs to be put in. But having spent time with them, there's a lot of potential, and they have a higher ceiling, I'd say, than the old low fidelity squad that kind of came through. I mean, you look at where Folie is now on Echo. She's doing a great job. She's great. Ethereal's not really playing anymore. I haven't seen much of their 5th, who was their opper. She was a great opper. Swan's a really good opper too, though. So it's one of those things that they've kind of Tad has built a great team around her. I want to say the personalities on the team mesh really well. As another point that this team, I look at it and I go, this is a long haul team. This isn't a team where they fail to qualify for Impact League Season 2. I don't see them immediately going, well, time to blow it up, as what happened to the old Low Fidelity when they were playing as I believe Sigma at the time. But that team they didn't qualify because they didn't check in time. They didn't have the chance to play. Because of that, I think the team just kind of disintegrated as a result. There wasn't any kind of goal after that. So with Season 2 coming up, they're going to try and qualify for sure, but I don't see them just going, well, we didn't qualify. That's our year, so we're not going to play anymore. They're still playing open. They're still probably going to do the cash cups because they love to do them, and they're still going to work together to be better. There's a real sense of camaraderie that I don't think was there kind of the first time around.
Just a note, by the way, if I can interject back on our Peruvian outlets. Last time that OCD actually did play was July 16th, 17th, and they had Alex 1337. I don't know if you remember her.
No.
Canadian, really good player. Also played back in the DreamHack Showdowns back in the day, I believe, as well. But nonetheless, she subbed in for that Osadia side, and the Osadia side was 100 Tafika, Nia, Jen, and Vedetia. They still need a 5th, and they remember lumped into North America. If you look at the ESEA league system, is a league called LA Open, Latin America Open, and this is for all the teams like from Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, these kind of things, Ecuador. So you have Supremacy competing in there, and that lineup is Namita, Peye, Andrea, Burbuja, and Adria. So Burbuja, Andrea, and Namita were part of that core Peruvian lineup back in the Impact League Season 1. They were trying to see who they were. If I go to North America really quick, they were Infamous Girls. That was it.
Okay.
But nonetheless, Namita, Vedetti, and Burbuja actually were on Ostadia, and they jumped over to form this kind of mesh with Infamous Girls, and they became Supremacy Gaming. So I think they've taken the best of the 2 lineups in prep for this run at Season 2. I think Ping is going to be a hard thing to overcome, as it always is.
Yeah.
But I think there's definitely an opportunity for Supremacy, maybe to finish mid-table, maybe not, maybe even potentially, if they're in the right group, qualify for the playoff game to get to the LAN. I don't fancy them to get to the actual LAN though.
Well, and I think you have to look at the format here and just say, listen, if you're not top 4, you're probably gonna have to qualify again. So I'm not sure if being mid-table is good enough, but if you can be that 4th place team, because we know the kind of the top 3's kind of set at this point, if you can be in that group and that 4th place position, you guarantee yourself, hopefully guarantee yourself a spot in season 3. Matt, you look like you're going to say something.
I would say, are any of the female rosters going to frag?
That's a good
know
question.
CLG's not, because they just convert. They still got to work out the paperwork for Cal Day, so it's like there's just logistically no way that they can.
They should
can
bring in a
get there.
stand-in.
Stand-in?
Let's bring a stand-in. How many? I'm down. Matt showing up. 6'7", showing up, being like, yeah.
I'll scream at the other team. It's going to be a 4v5, and I'll run down mid, but I'll be screaming at the other team for you. Don't worry.
Man, I've played with you, mate. That's not a substitute appearance. They might as well play 4v5. I'm going to be honest with you, mate.
They've done well in main so far.
Give me an
They
Xbox
have,
controller.
But have you seen BBon's statistics?
No, I haven't.
She dropped the 30 bomb in like 22 rounds on that overpass. Like she's actually sick. The other thing too is if you go back to that ancient game in the Cash Cup, she started 9-12 on an ancient and still ended up with like 34 kills by the end of the overtime period. Like absolutely. Like it's one of those things where obviously you have players who can play well, and that was Diane's ceiling. Like maybe not ceiling, but like she could always push the ceiling where she would have some games where she was just incredible. You can go back to WESG as an example when she played Dignitas on Nuke, and very tough to beat Dignitas on Nuke at that time, 2019. We're talking like early 2019, and she just dropped a 2.01 HLTV rating. It just absolutely went ham. And it's like Diane was always good for these just massive games where she was the entire server, but then you always got kind of like outside of that, you kind of just got your baseline performance. I'm not saying she was average, but I'm just saying you always got at least the baseline performance. Every once in a while, you got where I just think BBon is very quickly going to become. You talk about losing that firepower that Emmy had, and we saw how much of it she had in those substitute appearances with Vireo Pro in advance so far this season.
Yeah,
and it's like BBon is literally going to be that, and now potentially more, and that I think is why I'm so excited for the CLG roster.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a great spot, I guess, to kind of give it a break for now. We'll kind of come back and look at it in a bit. So we talked about CLG Red, we talked about EG. I guess we should the roster for Police and Box at this point. We haven't really talked too much about them. That is Smiley, Kimmy, Senna, Vanessa, and Bouchard.
Bouchard is by far my favorite player.
Everybody loves Bouch.
Yeah, I got to say this. No, she was outside of Tat, Tat's will be number one. But outside of Tat, like I said, she was the first player when I helped you guys out with the female cash cups that caught my eye. She is a talented individual, and I do believe you said Senna as well, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
I have a very small history with Senna. Unfortunately, I won't go too much into it, but it involved a team falling apart during an org. Birdie can tell you more about that. He gets mental flashbangs every time, but no, it's bad. No, never mind. I'm not going to bring up that drama, regardless of the fact. Senna has always been a great player, especially when she's able to compete. It's not just like females. She's proven that she can compete with anybody, male, female, doesn't freaking matter. So I haven't seen her play since Cash Cups. Like I've never been on one of her games, and I know how Bouchard plays. So seeing them two together are going to be great. The very little knowledge I know about Impact tells me that those two are going to be a dynamic duo.
Another thing to note too, Senna was on that side with Violent Roses that beat the Dignitas lineup at the DreamHack Showdown. So it wasn't a LAN, it was online because of COVID, but nonetheless that DreamHack Showdown. So I like, and that's kind of why I think she's got a lot of skill. She's a great player, but I like this lineup because you've got Bouchard in there who's got a lot of experience stretching back. I mean, I started watching Bouchard maybe the season after I started casting Counter-Strike is when I started to know of her. That's season 31. So that's how far back that goes. And she's been playing. She trialed for Dignitas back in those days. It didn't work through. She came into this lineup. So she's been playing with Kimmy and Smiley for the better part of, I want to say, 7 seasons in ESEA. I mean, all the way back from Able Esports women's team to Cyberstorm Blue. I mean, just consistently with this core lineup that has done significantly very well in these seasons. They always come up. The innovation is what I like about this team, because they always look at a map and they come up with something that you can use for their advantage, right? Back when it was Cyberstorm Blue and Able, it was Vertigo. Now I think that they play a pretty good Ancient as well, and they also are bringing in Overpass. They still have a pretty strong Mirage. Like I really like this team. I just think there's so much skill. Bringing in Senna on this lineup's great. Vanessa, I want to see more of. I think she's been a pretty good player so far. She's kind of the newest one of the side, so I'm wondering, are they going to, what are they going to get out of her? But the big question, and maybe I'm poking the bear a little bit here. Maybe it's not something we wanted to talk about, but they had Yuli sub in for them last Cash Cup. I mean, if they bring in Yuli in this lineup full time, this is a pretty strong team.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like you said, I don't want to poke the bear. I don't want to start saying things that aren't going to be true. I know they've done a lot.
Oh yeah.
I think one of them works sometimes during the weekends, or like their hours are weird.
Yeah, I think it's Smiley that she subbed in for last time actually.
Yeah, so
right. Cut that out. Edit that out.
But there's always like, they've always had kind of players come in. I know they had
Right.
Kianetta come in at one point. They've had Ethereal play for them for a bit of for like one of the 2 days. So
yeah,
it's one of those things that maybe it's just kind of a work thing. But still having, I don't, like I said, I don't know what Yuli's plan is after she left CLG Red. But I think in a way a natural fit for her would be going to an unsigned team such as Please Send Box. And I think if you're looking at that roster, unless they want to stick together as that 5, and they're really, really concentrating on that, I think you look at Yuli and you go, okay, well, who do we look at taking away, because we want this amazing 5th to join us, who has this wealth of experience, this wealth of championship titles under her belt, that can bring us to the next level and guarantee us maybe that second spot, maybe even have a more of a chance against CLG Red.
And maybe it's a 6-person lineup because of the work commitments, right?
There you go.
That's a perfectly, like, that's what I'm looking at too. It's like you got a pretty good core, the 5 players. You've got schedule commitments with some of these players, unfortunately, because just real life is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Not casting any negative shade on that or anything like that. Just it is what it is.
We all know that.
And
we're all
that's true.
full time and then doing esports on the side. So
that's true. But like, you have a really well experienced player who's played at least at the main level going back to season 32. So there's a lot of experience there, and a lot of talent, a lot of skill, and that maybe it's something where you just rotate whoever can make the game, and you have a 6-player lineup, and that I think would work fine for the Bucks. I would still say, if that's the case, they could be the ones going to DreamHack winner, or ESL Impact winner. Yeah, Yakuping. So thank you. But yeah, I think that's an opportunity for them as well. That's the thing. You got to remember, yes, we do have 8 teams in North America. We do have 4 invites. Only 2 of these teams are going to make the LAN. That's the big thing. So, I mean, CLG you would put as number 1. Everybody else is fighting for number 2.
And honestly, it's like going back to your thing about 6-man roster. EG's making a 15-man roster work. Let's make a 15 Impact League roster.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Hey man, it works. It works.
Yeah, but I think the problem is the amount of players you're asking about. This is like a 50-player scene that you're tapping into and going, let's have 15 of them all in one squad.
You can't lose to the best players if they're all on the same team. I'm gonna say.
Listen,
how else are we gonna beat CLG Red, guys? Come on, man.
EG signs another female team, then I'll start thinking about it. But right now, we're gonna hold with what we've got.
I think EG's just gonna sign everybody not CLG in the scene, and they're just gonna play like it's a COD
There you
Zombies
go.
or something against CLG. There you go. That's how it is. Like
45 v5.
Yeah, exactly. So Matt's been defeated at that comment.
Hey, well, listen, there's a lot of free agent teams in the FA scene, or in the FE scene rather. Like I know, Matt, you work so hard to find homes for the advanced squads, but maybe we got to start looking at getting these FE teams a home as well.
Man, once I can actually get some orgs that are willing to help fund some things instead of them like funding other esports that are dead or dying, hey, I'll gladly be able to help. I'm gonna call out the org owners because I know they ain't gonna be watching. This is a CS:GO podcast. They got they got worse things to be doing than actually paying attention to a great scene. But yes, I actually made that comment to you the other day, saying when I won't leak that. Never mind. I was talking about it. I won't go too far into it, but helping these female rosters that are solidified that have been playing together a while, I could easily find them home. Who doesn't want to support women's in esports in general? And the fact you make Counter-Strike such a great esport in general should be super easy. But now it comes down to like finding those orgs that are okay with because you have salaries, league fees, lands, all those things that players want. It's going to start saturating the scene a little bit in terms of the money is going to be spread thin, because there isn't a lot of money in esports, and if there is, it's going elsewhere. It's going to higher tiers. That's the thing. So it's going to be tough trying to find these smaller orgs or medium-sized orgs, what we're going to call them, tier 3, tier 4 even orgs. Throw that in there, even though they don't really exist. That are going to be willing to spend some money on the ladies, and in terms of other maybe NA Counter-Strike teams, especially advanced ones that still don't have homes for some reason. Next season, though, I did say that I was going to try and have more of a focus. I was going to reach out to all the rosters that aren't worked up, because I had one roster reach out to me this season. I actually had two reach out to me last season, one of them being Please Send Help last season. I was not able to get them under a home, but it almost went through with Detonate. I'm not too sure what happened there. Just kind of went and came and gone kind of thing. But getting ladies worked up for next season, definitely going to be able to do. It's tough enough being 12 game ESEA season, getting the guys, or just advanced, I can't even say guys, just the advanced teams worked up right now. But it's possible. It's just teams and orgs need to start, not teams but organizations need to start learning where they should be putting their money, and why investing into the female Counter-Strike scene right now is where it's at. I mean, you freaking saw Furious doing it. BIG, I think, was doing it at one point, if they're not still in.
Yeah, they still are. They're still in.
Yeah, and then MIBR is in it. Like, these top organizations that have been in Counter-Strike and in esports for a while are investing in it. EG, I mean, CLG Red, I'm going to count them as well, but they've been in the scene for, 9 years, you said? And then on top of... What's up?
I want to say it's been 7 for CLG.
Yeah, 7 years. Yeah, 7 years. Yeah. We'll go with that. There's a reason why you're seeing bigger orgs, start working with female rosters. Some org owners are too stupid to see that. Unfortunately, I cannot help them. I do my best, but there are good reasons to why. Now EG is going to be at, they're going to be the season 2 qualifier. That thingy that's going on there for, oh god, the league's called, not Impact, but the other one, the one that we were just talking about. For the Impact League and stuff like that, and the lands and stuff, because I mean, think about it like this: EG just invested X amount of money into that roster, and they're pretty much guaranteed a slot. They're guaranteed.
Yeah, they're guaranteed a slot in the online season. Yeah, and the prize pool for that online season isn't huge. Don't get me wrong, but it's still the fact that you're taking a team that's probably favorited to win or get at least a playoff spot, right, and finish in the higher end of the prize pool, even if they don't make the LAN. And that's the thing you talk about real quick, not to cut you off, but real quick. No, that's the big difference that you see with Brazil versus North America. Almost everybody signed in Brazil. In fact, there's one unsigned team in Brazil. But look at what they have. They have Brazil Game Show. They have Valkyris. They have Masters Feminina. They have 3-4 different online tournaments a year. Their seasons, by the way, their seasons compared to ESEA. ESEA is 4 seasons a year. They do it monthly. Their seasons are monthly. Wow. So they do 10 to 12 seasons a year, and it is a lot. You're right.
What?
Yeah, they don't have one in Brazil. They don't take one. So
they don't need to. We were talking about it earlier in the podcast. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So, look. There's a lot more for them. So organizations are there knowing that they're going to get some investment on return, or some return on investment, I should say, because they're going to have a lot of exposure. That's going to keep your sponsors happy because they're constantly on the screen, right? And then also you've got the prize money as well. So we don't have that in North America. Now that we're finally getting that with the Impact League, you can see that these EG starting to come in. They signed a team. You saw it in Europe. Big came in. They signed a team. Navi came in. They signed a team. Right. So you're starting to see investment from these organizations, and that's what I think is the big key that you said, is that organizations don't understand the opportunity that they have with investing with the women's game. But I think that's why it's important, once that Jokaping is done, that season 2 of this, or year 2, if you want to call it season 3 of this Impact League, all the details are tied up very quickly, because you need to give orgs the showcase to these orgs that if you continue to invest in the women's game, the opportunity for you to get your return on investment will be there for you. And I think that's what EG see with the sacrifice lineup. Maybe that's what they saw in the Cash Cup as well. They said this team actually is competing against CLG Red on a map, like pretty good, like an opportunity. This could be the next best team in NA. And then if that's the case, and they're playing CLG Red this tough and a new look CLG Red this tough with potentially improved player and firepower, what can they do on the international stage, right? So that's what I think. Orgs like EG are looking at it, and that's why I think if we do get these details for season 3, season 4 for next year, you might see a lot more orgs and NA come swooping in on these teams that have a chance to make these lands.
It's like, for me, it's like I could cry and complain about orgs all the freaking day, man. But I really could. To put that statement into like its coffin or whatever, man. It's just I almost we have a little marketing chat, and there's just times that I'm like sitting there like, these guys are a bunch of just dummies, It's trying to be nice about it, but like just trying to convince them to get advanced rosters alone is already difficult. I can't imagine what I'm gonna have to do to get these female teams signed up, because I don't just say, hey, here are teams. I don't just do that. I market them. And if you saw what I did for Victorium, you'd understand. I don't do this for every team. In fact, that's the only team I've done this for, is the way I'm marketing Victorium right now, through DMs and stuff like that. It's a whole pitch deck. It's a 10, 15-page pitch deck that I'm sending to teams. And it's about the players, what they've done, why it's important to invest in Counter-Strike, all that stuff. Going forth, I forgot my train of thought already, what I wanted to actually go after the fact of that is maybe we can talk to, maybe we can get a small little tournament or even a league going with Mr. EGL Premier up there in general chat later today. He's talked about it. He has, and I'm not bullshit.
He has. Yeah, he's reached out to me quite a few times.
He has said he is willing to put, as long as the money is there in terms of sponsorships, he's okay with putting on a tournament or putting on a league with 8 female teams, or even as many as he can get to sign up, Because like you said earlier, I think there's a solid top 2. You said Sacrifice / EG and CLG Red. So your seeding's already done. And like, say there's a weird amount, your first and second seed are already done. And then the rest, there's like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th that I'm to my understanding are kind of like, they all kind of trade. And then the rest of the bottom kind of thing. You're right. Or not the bottom, but you know what I mean. There's a middle pack there.
Yeah.
So seeding wouldn't be a problem. It would just be how it is. Because I think that they're the top 2 teams in the NA FE scene are pretty apparent. And you guys have made that apparent throughout the entirety of the podcast. But I mean, in terms of that, maybe we can work something out with Mr. Crown and maybe get more of that female, tournaments, leagues, and whatnot, just organizers in general, like compared to Brazil that they have, or South America, I believe you said. It might have been Brazil. Maybe we can get that going here, because that's my specialty, the esports side of things. Yeah. Esports is my specialty.
I know Benny had a project for a while going where he couldn't get it off the ground, I guess, or there was lack of funding at the time. Was
we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it off the ground eventually, but it's the fact that getting the money.
The money is the hardest part.
It's always the hardest part. Well, here's the thing, right? EG, the difference between my project and EGL is that EGL have proof of concept.
Yeah.
Right. So season 1, we all remember the EGL season 1. If you don't, it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough going, right? But that's proof of concept that you can run the event, right?
Yeah.
And then you come in with season 2 and you go, it's going to be improved. We're going to improve it. We're going to improve it. And we did, right? It was an improved product. So now sponsors look at it and go, this is a tournament organizer that has run 2 solid tournaments. There's been no issues. The quality of the product has improved over time. That is proof of concept. Now you have this 3rd season that's going very well. So you can build upon that. So the first step out the door is always the toughest, right? So and I think that's the issue. But he has talked to me about doing things for the women's scene before. I think the biggest problem was the timing, because he came to me, I think in end of January, February, and was like, "Yo, you think we're going to get the teams?" And I'm like,
"No."
We're coming off a North American region that has, for 2021, had CLG and nobody else. So it was like, I mean, we had the Police and Box lineup currently considering going to Valorant in 2021. So it was like we were in a scenario where where are these players coming from? We don't know. We don't know what the scene is like, what the depth of the scene is like. So now that we have it established, we see it's grown over the course of 8 months. Yes, now the opportunity is there to run an event like that.
There you go. I mean, listen, we can talk about FECS all day long. I know we can. Benny and I do it all the time.
We have the sunset. It's
yeah, the
currently dark
sunset.
as hell in
Benny's
this
in the
room.
dark.
I'm in the dark now.
I think that's a good spot to leave it at for now. I mean, this isn't a one-off. Brace for Impact is going to be more of a consistent section within an advanced notice, because it's one of those things that I care about a lot. It's one of the things that having Benny on for a lot always helps as well. So I mean, that's kind of where we got to leave it for now. I mean, big shout out to Matt for coming on to act as my guest co-host. We're probably going to have you on a few more times in the future, because I love talking to you about the org side of stuff. Tony brings the stats and everything, but you bring a lot of the insider knowledge.
I'm the Woj of Advance. Listen, I know a player's getting dropped before they know most of the time with the top Advance.
Oh yeah,
but it's great.
I mean, yeah. So shout out to you. Shout out to Benny. Benny, you got any big shout outs or goodbyes you want to say?
No, just congratulations to the Sacrifice Girls for getting signed. It's a huge achievement. It's one that can't be understated. So big congratulations to them.
Yeah, and we're definitely gonna be seeing more of you in the future, because of course you and I are two peas in a pod when it comes to doing FECS. So it's always nice to have somebody I can talk to and they understand everything. I mean, you have the knowledge of the pre-pandemic stuff that I don't, whereas I'm trying to keep up with the modern things. And you don't understand Benny's commitment until you're up at 3 a.m. watching him cast Oceanic Cash Cup.
And I'm half dead.
And he's half dead.
Yeah.
He does it, and then he goes straight to EU, and then he
Yes,
still
Lord.
comes back for Brazil. Like, he just does not stop. So huge shout out to Benny for that kind of stuff. Like, he does so much for the scene that I don't think a lot of people notice or see, just because you wouldn't have the reach of ESL. But at the same time, like, the people in the back who do a lot of the casting, who do a lot of this stuff, they know who you are, and it's great that they, I'm one of those people that I rarely ask for any kind of praise for my job or anything like that, but knowing that people who do the same thing as me know me, it makes my day. So I don't know if you're the same as me.
I try to stay humble. It is fantastic to get the praise. I do have to admit it. I mean, it's really great, but at the same time, like, I always look at it, it's just there's so much more I can do. So I think there's a lot of other people. I look at other people in the scene that have done some fantastic work, like Milk and like the late Grumpy, and I look to them for inspiration and think they're people that also do a very thankless job and don't get enough credit for what they bring to the scene. So I appreciate the words. I mean, I'll absolutely take them, but I don't. I'm not the only guy out here. There's a whole scene of support staff that a lot of people don't see that really keep this scene kind of together at the foundation.
Matt, you got any shout outs or anything that you want to push through as well?
I don't know. Just be on the lookout. Obviously, free agent Matt looking for a home kind of thing with the line. No, joking aside. I mean, we got some great rosters here in female Counter-Strike. We got some great rosters here in Advanced and even ECL Challenger League. So if you guys are ESL, I keep saying ESL Challenger League. If you guys need a roster, hit me up. As long as you got money. Listen, that's the truth. These players, they're top rosters, they're top players for a reason. Female Counter-Strike, I can't obviously comment on that just yet, but I'm assuming they're going to want some kind of support. But
we'll get you there. We'll bring you up to speed. Don't worry.
We'll be there soon. Don't worry.
They might not want the 10K, but they'll take the dental.
All right. Well, we're gonna leave it there for now. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back in 2 weeks with episode number 3. Yeah, keep an eye out for us. This was Advanced Notice.